starting with my first bill, which would say members of Congress can't be paid and don't get back pay even after we end the shutdown.
Is there an objection?
Right to object. I think it's time that instead of closing the government down further, that we begin to open up government. What I will offer is legislation that instead of closing government down further, begins to pay those who are working. I ask that the senator modify his request.
Mr. President.
Would the senator modify his request?
I will not, Mr. President, and I'd like to explain why. I understand Senator Paul is making a good point. I think what Senator Paul is saying, let's pay everybody. That's what I understand him to be saying. And he wants me to agree to that instead of my bill. Here's the problem I have with Senator Paul's proposal of pulling down my bill. There's several reasons. Number one, I'm interested in passing something. I'm not interested in just putting on a show. My bill will pass the House of Representatives, and my bill will be signed by the President. Senator Paul's bill, I can assure you, will not pass the House of Representatives. President Trump will not sign it. I'm not saying someone's right or somebody's wrong. President Trump does not consider to be Senator Paul to be part of his MAGA agenda, and he will veto it. Then we're right back to square one. So for that reason, I can't substitute his for mine, because his is going to be as dead as fried chicken here in a few days, and mine has a chance to pass. Now, I need some clarification, Mr. President. Parliamentary inquiry, if you will. Do I understand that Senator Paul has objected to my bill?
The senator from Kentucky asked if you would modify your request.
And his modification, if I might ask, is to substitute his bill for mine.
That is the understanding of the chair.
Okay. I have said I will not substitute his bill for mine.
Objection to the modification is heard.
Okay. Now,
is there an objection to the original request?
Reserving the right to object. I think it's actually not clear at all that the president wouldn't sign a bill to continue paying federal workers. Now, I probably would not hire new people, and I would probably let the federal government shrink gradually through attrition, because I think we need to be smaller. But if you work for government, you're doing your job, and you have a contract, I think you ought to be paid. So I don't think it's not clear that the president wouldn't support this. I think it's actually quite confusing that this is being objected by the Democrats. And I think actually it'd be nice to let the Democrats, have a round at this and explain to us why they don't want to pay their traffic controllers. I think it's actually an untenable position of Democrats to come before this body and say, oh, we want to give subsidies to people who make $225,000 a year. That's what they're arguing for. The Obamacare subsidies are not the basic subsidies. These are add-on subsidies that started 2 years ago. If you make $100,000 a year, the Democrats want to give you $13,000. Meanwhile, people who make $20,000 and are on food stamps are not going to get food stamps, but somebody making $100,000 is going to get $13,000. That doesn't sound like the Democrats are for the working class or for the poor. It sounds like the Democrats are for people making $200,000 a year to get a subsidy. And I don't see the president objecting to this. I think the president would sign this in a heartbeat. So I object.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President,
Chair recognizes the senator from Louisiana.
Could I ask for clarification? I have offered in a bill to say that Congress does not get paid like everyone else is not being paid during the shutdown. There's been a little bit back and forth. As I understand it, Senator Paul has objected to that bill. Is that correct?
The senator from Kentucky objected to your unanimous consent request.
To my bill to say Congress isn't paid during the shutdown. Is that correct?
To the bill you ask unanimous consent to pass, he objected to the unanimous consent.
Right. I want to bring up my second bill. It's called the Withhold Member Pay During Shutdowns Act. Remember my first bill that Senator Paul objected to, we don't get paid until the shutdown is lifted, and we don't get our money in arrears. In other words, we don't recoup our money once the shutdown is lifted. Perhaps Senator Paul will find my second bill to be more palatable to him and his pocketbook. The Withhold Member Pay During Shutdowns Act would say, while we're in the shutdown, everyone else is not being paid, Congress would not be paid. But members of Congress, including Senator Paul, including me, including all members of Congress, would have the right to get the money back to be paid after they're out of the shutdown. In other words, the money would be escrowed, and they would get it once we came out of the shutdown. Again, there is precedent for that. I talked about what Senator Obama did back in 2013. And for that reason, Mr. President, I'm going to ask unanimous consent on that one. I further ask that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there an objection?
Mr. President.
Chair recognizes the senator from Kentucky.
Reserving the